Discipline is forcing yourself to do what must be done, even when you don't want to. This is the truth most people in our comfortable, modern American life avoid, but it is the unyielding truth that separates lasting success from quiet failure. The title of this audiobook is not a suggestion, it is a command. Unleash your inner drive. Because, let's be brutally honest, if you wait until you feel ready, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. If you depend on a fleeting wave of motivation from a social media post, you will always fall short when the real work begins. Before we dive into the raw mechanics of building this unstoppable force, do yourself a favor. Hit that like button, leave a comment telling us the one thing you've been putting off, and subscribe to Audiobook Bites. Don't let the algorithm be the reason you miss the tools that will change your life. Discipline is not a choice you make only on good days when the sun is shining and your coffee tastes perfect. It's the decision you make every single day, especially on the days it feels the hardest, the days your mind screams for you to just give in. Think about it. How many opportunities have you lost because you delayed? How many times has the siren song of comfort stolen your progress? This message is not about feel-good theories. It's about the harsh reality of self-mastery. It's about learning to seize control of yourself in those critical moments when excuses are screaming the loudest. If you can force yourself into discipline, you can fundamentally change every single area of your life. And that is exactly what you are about to learn. Chapter 1. Confront laziness directly and refuse to negotiate. Discipline is not something you stumble upon like a lucky penny on the sidewalk. It is not a gift that arrives at your door one morning, neatly packaged with a smile. Discipline is a beast you must face, something you must confront, and most importantly, something you must force into your life when every fiber of your being would rather avoid it. When you feel that gravitational pull of laziness, when your body says, stay in bed just 5 more minutes, when your mind whispers that you've worked hard and you deserve a break, that is the precise moment you must stand up and refuse to negotiate. Because if you negotiate with laziness, even once, it will win the argument every single time. Laziness is the most skilled debater in the world. It never runs out of excuses. Laziness will always have another reason ready, another justification polished and waiting. But if you refuse to negotiate, if you take your stand and shut down the conversation before it begins, you start to build the kind of inner strength that forges a new reality. Laziness has a devious way of disguising itself. It does not always arrive as doing nothing, binge-watching another series, or scrolling endlessly. Sometimes, it shows up as perceived productivity. Take Liam, a brilliant software engineer in the heart of Silicon Valley. He has a game-changing startup idea, one that could redefine his entire career. But every morning, instead of writing the first lines of code, his laziness disguises itself. It tells him to first organize his email inbox, then to network by scrolling through LinkedIn for an hour, then to research competitors, a task he's already done a dozen times. He feels busy, he feels productive, but in reality, he is just avoiding the difficult, essential work. That is how laziness wins. It fools you into believing you are doing enough when you are simply avoiding what is truly difficult. And the unwavering truth about life is this: progress is always found in what is difficult. The things that push you, the things that make you sweat, the things that demand your unwavering focus, those are the things that shape you into a person of unshakable discipline. If you want to become disciplined, you have to learn to see laziness for what it truly is, the sworn enemy of your future. When you wake up in the morning and feel the weight of the comfortable bed holding you down, That is the moment discipline is calling your name. You either answer it or you turn your back on it. But here is the stark reality. Every single time you turn your back on discipline, you strengthen your laziness. Every time you choose comfort over action, you are training your mind to obey the weakest part of yourself. And then, when it matters most, when a true opportunity demands your focus and grit, you will already be conditioned to quit. That is why it is so profoundly dangerous to negotiate with laziness. Even the smallest excuses begin to carve out the shape of your character. You think you are only skipping one workout at the gym, but what you are really doing is building the habit of saying no to discipline. You are teaching your brain that your commitments are optional. Now ask yourself, how many times this past week have you chosen the easy option over the necessary one? How many times have you said, "I'll do it tomorrow," only to realize that your tomorrow looked exactly like your today? That is laziness negotiating with you, and you accepted the deal. But if you truly want to live a better, stronger life, you cannot keep signing that contract with mediocrity. You must face laziness directly. Look it in the eye and refuse to make a deal with it. You say no. You take action in that very moment, even if your mind screams in protest. That is what forces discipline into your system. You see, the reason so many people remain stuck in their lives is not because they lack knowledge or opportunity. It is because they constantly negotiate with laziness. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until the conditions are perfect. They wait until motivation arrives like some magical muse. But those things never come when you expect them. If you sit around waiting for the perfect feeling to strike, you will wait for the rest of your life. Discipline begins the moment you act before you feel ready. It begins when you face laziness directly, and you move in spite of it. The human mind is a master at creating justifications for comfort. It tells you compelling stories. You worked so hard yesterday, take it easy today. You don't have the energy right now, do it later when you feel better. One skipped day won't hurt anything. These are not harmless thoughts. These are chains. They keep you tied down to the same level, the same results, the same life. And if you accept them, you become weaker without even realizing it. You may think you are just resting, but in reality, you are training yourself to surrender. This is why you must build the ability to recognize those thoughts and shut them down before they gain control over your actions. Think about the people you admire most in your field. They are not more talented than you. They are not luckier than you. They simply made a decision to stop negotiating with laziness. They built their discipline by refusing to listen to excuses, by forcing themselves to act even when they didn't feel like it. That is the secret. It is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is simply the raw power to say no to the weakness inside of you and yes to the actions that will move you forward. Now, forcing yourself to be disciplined is not about being harsh with yourself for the sake of punishment. It is about respect. It is about respecting your future self enough to make decisions today that will serve you tomorrow. When you refuse to negotiate with laziness, you are telling yourself, "I am worth the effort. My future is worth this sacrifice. My goals are worth this temporary discomfort." That is not self-punishment. That is self-respect at the highest possible level. The truth is, laziness never really goes away for good. It will show up tomorrow and the day after that. You cannot eliminate it, but you can systematically weaken it. You can strip it of its power by consistently refusing to give in to its demands. Every time you choose action over excuses, you take a piece of strength back for yourself. And over time, the balance of power shifts. Laziness becomes weaker, and discipline becomes stronger. Eventually, discipline becomes who you are, not just something you do. But that transformation begins with a single, crucial moment. The moment you stop negotiating. It will not feel easy at first. Your body will fight you. Your mind will argue with you. You will hear every rationalization to delay. But you must train yourself to recognize that this is the exact moment where discipline is built. Not when it is easy, not when it is convenient, only when it is hard, only when you don't feel like it. That is where strength is born. That is where a disciplined life begins. Ask yourself right now, what have you been putting off? What area of your life have you allowed laziness to win? Maybe it's your health, your finances, your career. Whatever it is, understand this. The longer you negotiate with laziness, the more you lose. And time is not coming back. That is the real crushing cost of laziness. Not just wasted minutes, but wasted opportunities and a diminished life. So how do you face it directly? You start small. You pick one thing you know you need to do, and you do it immediately. You do not think about it. You do not debate it. You do not ask how you feel. You simply stand up and you act. That small victory begins to break the pattern. And once you break the pattern once, you can break it again, and again, and again. That is how discipline is built, through small, defiant victories stacked on top of each other until they create a foundation that laziness cannot possibly break. And every time you win against laziness, you gain something more valuable than just progress. You gain confidence. You begin to trust yourself. You know that when laziness shows up tomorrow, you will be ready for it. You will not fold. You will not bargain. You will act. That trust is priceless, because once you trust yourself, once you know that you will not negotiate with weakness, your life changes in ways you cannot yet imagine. There will always be people who say, "I can't do it. It's too hard. I'll start later." Do not join their chorus of defeat. They are waiting for a moment that will never come. Instead, become the person who says, "I will do it now. I will act even when I don't feel like it. I will not negotiate." That person builds a life of freedom, success, and profound growth. And that person can be you. So remember this. The next time laziness calls, do not answer. The next time it whispers excuses, shut it down. The next time it offers you the temporary comfort of delay, refuse the deal. Stand firm. Take action. Build your strength one choice at a time. And never forget, the moment you refuse to negotiate with laziness is the moment you force yourself into discipline. And discipline is the path that changes everything. Chapter 2. Take small actions. Immediately to train instant response. Discipline is not something you build in giant, heroic leaps. It is not something that appears one day after a sudden, life-altering decision. It is created in the small, seemingly insignificant actions taken at the exact moment they are needed. Every time you delay, every time you pause and wait, you weaken your ability to respond. The secret to real, functional discipline is learning to act immediately, to move as soon as the thought to do something productive enters your mind, without hesitation and without negotiation. Those small, instant actions train your mind and body to respond without delay. And that habit becomes the foundation of strength in every single part of your life. Think about how many opportunities, large and small, pass you by simply because you paused. You felt the urge to go for a run, but waited a little longer and then skipped it entirely. You knew you had an important call to make, but you told yourself you'd do it later, and later never came. You had a brilliant idea to write down, but you convinced yourself it could wait, and then the idea vanished. These small moments of hesitation do not feel destructive at the time, but they slowly condition you to ignore your own internal direction. They teach your mind that hesitation is an acceptable response, and the more you accept hesitation, the weaker your discipline becomes. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine if every time you had the thought to act, you moved. You thought of drinking a glass of water, so you immediately stood up and drank it. You thought of picking up a book to read a page, so you opened it. You remembered a task you needed to complete for work, so you started it right then and there. That pattern builds something incredibly powerful: the ability to respond instantly. That is how you eliminate laziness before it has a chance to grow. That is how you prevent procrastination from building deep roots. And that is how you gain true control over yourself. The reason immediate action is so powerful is because the human brain is astonishingly fast at creating reasons to stop. Within seconds of thinking about doing something hard, your mind generates a whole list of arguments against it. It tells you you're too tired. It tells you you'll have more energy later. It tells you it's not urgent right now. But those arguments only appear when you wait. If you act before your brain has time to debate, you win. You cut off the excuses before they can even take shape. That is why small, instant actions matter far more than big, delayed ones. When you decide to train this skill, start with something ridiculously simple. As soon as your alarm rings in the morning, stand up. Not after a few minutes of scrolling through your phone, not after hitting snooze. Stand up immediately. This is a small action, but it builds a powerful lesson. I control my response. Do the same when you remember a small task. Do it right then, even if it only takes 30 seconds. Each time you do this, you reinforce the message that you are a person who acts, not a person who waits. Discipline is not just about your grand goals. It is about teaching yourself that your actions follow your decisions without a gap. If you decide to do something and then don't, you are actively teaching yourself to doubt your own word. But if you decide and then act instantly, you are teaching yourself to trust your own commitments. That trust grows into confidence. Confidence grows into consistency. And consistency builds a disciplined life. But it all begins with those small actions taken immediately. You may think that these small actions are too insignificant to matter, but they are the very seeds of change. When you act instantly on a small task, you are training the exact same mental muscle that will later help you act instantly on bigger, more intimidating challenges. Picking up a book today trains the same discipline that will help you start a business tomorrow. Standing up as soon as your alarm rings trains the same discipline that will help you stay strong under immense pressure later in life. You cannot skip the small steps. They are the training ground for the big ones. If you want to test yourself, give this rule a try. When you think of something necessary, count down from 3 and then physically move. 3, 2, 1. Move. Do not let the thought sit for long. That simple rule removes hesitation. It breaks the habit of waiting, and it forces you to build a new reflex. Act now. Over time, you won't even need to count. Your body will just move on its own. That is what real discipline feels like. Not a constant, forced effort, but a trained, automatic reflex. But here is the truth. You will not always feel like moving instantly. Some days, the small action will feel heavier than it should. Some days, you will desperately want to delay. That is where the training comes in. You are not building a lifestyle where everything feels easy. You are building a mind that acts regardless of feelings. Feelings change. One day you feel motivated, the next day you don't. If your life depends on your feelings, you will live an inconsistent life full of ups and downs. But if your life depends on a trained response, you will live a disciplined, upward-trending life. Look at any person who has achieved true consistency in their field. They are not waiting for a bolt of inspiration to strike them every single day. They trained themselves to act as soon as the decision was made. That is why they succeed. They may not always do it perfectly, but they do it without delay. And the truth is, discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency of action over time. That consistency is impossible to achieve without an instant response. You must also understand that waiting does more than just waste your time. It weakens your self-respect. Every time you delay, you feel that small, nagging weight of disappointment. You know you should have moved, but you didn't. That small regret builds into frustration, and frustration, if repeated long enough, turns into corrosive self-doubt. That is the dangerous cycle of hesitation. But when you act immediately, even on something small, you feel a surge of pride. That pride fuels your motivation. That motivation makes the next action easier. And soon, your life is filled with momentum instead of regret. Discipline is not a gift. It is a choice, repeated until it becomes natural. And the most powerful way to train that choice is through instant action. When you think of doing something productive, move before the excuses arrive. When you feel resistance, step into it quickly before it grows into an immovable wall. Every instant action is a declaration that you are stronger than your hesitation. The beauty of this approach is that anyone can start it right now. You don't need money, you don't need special equipment, you don't need any special skills. All you need is the willingness to act as soon as the thought appears. That is available to everyone. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. The first time you do it, it may feel uncomfortable. The 10th time, it feels less difficult. The 100th time, it feels automatic. That is how you turn instant action into an unbreakable habit. Think about this. Every person has the same 24 hours in a day. Some build disciplined, productive lives, while others waste their days away. The difference is not the amount of time. The difference is the response time. Some act immediately. Others wait. Which group do you want to belong to? The answer lies in what you do the moment a decision comes into your mind. If you want a stronger future, stop giving power to hesitation. Start honoring your positive thoughts with immediate action. When you feel the urge to do something good for yourself, move. When you know a task is waiting for you, handle it now. When you have the choice to delay or to act, choose to act. Those choices may seem small in the moment, but they are shaping who you become. The disciplined life is built in these exact moments, not tomorrow, not someday, but right now, right here, in the decision you make today. Take small actions immediately, and you will train yourself to respond instantly. That instant response becomes your protection against laziness, procrastination, and wasted time. It becomes the tool that helps you live with focus and strength. And it becomes the foundation of a life that grows stronger every single day. When you decide to act instantly, you are telling yourself that your future matters more than your current comfort. You are telling yourself that excuses will no longer run your life. You are telling yourself that you are in control. That message, repeated in hundreds of small actions, will change absolutely everything. So when the next decision enters your mind, do not wait. Do not hesitate. Do not negotiate. Act. Move. Respond. Because the life you want is waiting for you, but only for the person who learns to act without delay. Chapter 3. Control your thoughts before they control your decisions. The greatest and most decisive battles of discipline are not fought in the gym, in the office, or out in the world. They are fought silently, inside the human mind. Every single action you take begins first as a thought, and every decision you make is shaped by the direction of your thinking. If you do not learn to control what goes on in your head, then your life will always be led by impulses, fleeting emotions, and negative distortions. But when you gain deliberate control over your thoughts, you put yourself in the position to make stronger, clearer, and wiser choices. Discipline becomes possible only when you understand how profoundly powerful your thinking truly is. Most people dramatically underestimate how much their thoughts influence their lives. They believe that their actions are separate from their thinking, but in reality, action is only the final extension of what you allow to stay and grow in your mind. Think about it. The person who repeatedly tells themselves they will never improve eventually stops trying. The person who constantly thinks they will fail doesn't even begin. Thoughts are not harmless, passing clouds. They are the seeds of every decision, and every decision builds your future. This is why controlling your thoughts is the most important foundation for building discipline. When you are not aware of what you are thinking, your mind becomes a playground for negativity. One negative thought leads to another, and soon you are filled with hesitation, fear, or a long list of excuses. You say to yourself that you are too tired, that you are not capable, or that it is not worth the effort. If you allow these thoughts to sit unchallenged in your mind, they will absolutely shape your actions. You may not notice it at first, but slowly, you begin to avoid what is hard. You begin to settle for less than you are capable of. And over time, your life becomes a direct reflection of the weakness of those thoughts. The good news is that you can take back control. You can train yourself to filter your thoughts the same way you would filter the food you eat. You don't eat whatever is put in front of you without thinking. You choose carefully because you know it will affect your physical health. In the exact same way, you cannot allow every thought to take root in your mind. You must consciously choose which thoughts are worth keeping and which ones must be immediately replaced. This is a discipline in itself, the discipline of thought management. The first step to controlling your thoughts is awareness. Far too many people live on mental autopilot, never stopping to notice what they are actually thinking. They assume their thoughts are facts, when in reality, most thoughts are simply opinions, interpretations, or echoes of past experiences. If you want to take control, you must learn to pause and examine your thinking. Ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Is this thought leading me forward or holding me back? Is this thought building discipline or destroying it? The very act of asking these questions gives you the power to separate yourself from the thought, instead of being mindlessly controlled by it. The second step is replacement. You cannot simply force a negative thought to disappear. The human mind does not operate in a vacuum. If you want to get rid of a destructive thought, you must replace it with a constructive one. If your mind says, "I can't do this," you must immediately replace it with, "I may struggle, but I can learn and improve." If your mind says, "I don't feel like starting," you replace it with, "I will begin now because starting creates its own momentum." Replacement is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about deliberately directing your mind toward thoughts that build strength rather than thoughts that nurture weakness. Another important step is to limit the input that feeds your negative thoughts. Your environment is constantly shaping the way you think. The news you consume, the conversations you have, the people you spend time with. All of these leave an impression on your mind. If you surround yourself with people who always complain, you will start to think in complaints. If you fill your day with endless, mindless entertainment, your thoughts will naturally lean toward comfort instead of growth. Controlling your thoughts also means controlling what you expose yourself to on a daily basis. If you want discipline, you must create an environment that feeds your mind with clarity, focus, and direction. One of the strongest tools for controlling your thoughts is reflection. Set aside a few minutes each day to examine how your thinking guided your choices. Ask yourself, did my thoughts push me toward my goals or away from them today? Where did I let negativity control my actions? Where did I win the battle in my mind? This daily habit builds your awareness and allows you to make corrections before poor thinking becomes a hardened habit. The more often you reflect, the quicker you will catch harmful patterns. Understand this truth. Your feelings often follow your thoughts. If your thinking is undisciplined, your emotions will be unstable. You will feel discouraged, overwhelmed, or anxious, not because of your circumstances, but because of how you are thinking about them. But when you control your thoughts, your emotions become more stable. You feel capable, strong, and in control. And when your emotions are steady, your decisions dramatically improve. This is why controlling your thoughts is not just a mental exercise. It directly affects your energy, your focus, and your ability to follow through on your commitments. You must also learn to challenge your irrational thoughts. Many times, your mind will exaggerate reality. It will tell you the task is too big, that you don't have enough time, that failure is certain. But when you step back and examine these thoughts, you realize they are not facts. They are fears. Discipline grows when you confront those fears with objective truth. The task may be big, but it can be broken down into smaller steps. You may not feel ready, but you can start with what you have right now. Failure may be possible, but so is success. Challenging your thoughts is how you prevent them from dictating your behavior. Controlling your thoughts is not about ignoring difficulty. Life will always present you with challenges. It is about choosing how you respond to those challenges in your mind before you respond with your actions. The person who disciplines their thoughts says, "This is difficult, but I can handle it one step at a time." The person who does not control their thoughts says, "This is difficult, so I won't even try." The same situation, a different thought, and a completely different outcome. If you want to make this practical, begin by paying attention to the small moments. Notice what you say to yourself when the alarm rings. Notice what you think when you face a hard task at work. Notice the thoughts that appear when you feel tempted to delay. Then, begin the practice of replacing them instantly. Instead of 5 more minutes of sleep, say, "Getting up now strengthens me." Instead of, "I'll do it later," say, "Doing it now keeps me disciplined." Instead of, "This is too much," say, "I will take the first step." This is how you slowly retrain your mind to work for you instead of against you. Over time, as you win more of these small battles in your mind, you begin to feel stronger. You trust yourself more because you know that your thoughts no longer control you. You control them. That trust builds a kind of quiet, unshakable power. You no longer feel like a victim of your own feelings. You no longer let every distraction pull you away from your path. You live with intention. That is the essence of discipline, living by choice instead of by reaction. One of the greatest benefits of controlling your thoughts is that it gives you freedom. People often think discipline is about restriction, but it is the absolute opposite. When your thoughts are clear and directed, you are free from the chaos of impulses and doubts. You are free to decide your own actions instead of being pulled around by every feeling that arises. That freedom gives you strength, it gives you peace, and it gives you the ability to move forward consistently, even when life is difficult. The difference between those who stay stuck and those who grow is simple. The ones who stay stuck never take control of their thinking. They let their thoughts run wild, and those thoughts lead them into poor decisions, wasted time, and deep regret. The ones who grow learn to master their inner dialogue. They choose thoughts that serve them. They replace weakness with strength. And because of that, their actions follow a higher path. From this moment forward, make it your mission to notice your thinking. Treat every thought as a visitor knocking on the door of your mind. Some visitors you welcome in because they bring value. Others you send away because they bring harm. The power to decide who stays and who leaves is yours. When you exercise that power daily, discipline becomes not just an action, but a way of life. Do not wait until your thoughts drag you into poor decisions. Take control at the very first moment. Direct your mind before it directs you. Replace weakness with strength, doubt with determination, hesitation with action. This is how you take ownership of your life, and this is how you build the discipline that will carry you to every single goal you set for yourself. Chapter 4. Force repetition. Until your brain accepts new behavior. Human behavior is built on patterns. Whatever you do repeatedly becomes easier to do again. Your brain is a remarkable machine designed to adapt, and it does not care whether what you repeat is useful or destructive. If you repeat procrastination, it becomes your natural response. If you repeat making excuses, they become automatic. But if you repeat acts of strength, that too becomes automatic. The only way to truly rewire your brain for discipline is through deliberate, forced repetition, forcing yourself to do the desired behavior again and again until it feels normal. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, even unnatural. But consistent repetition changes what your brain accepts as familiar territory. Think about the first time you tried to do anything difficult. It felt heavy, awkward, or exhausting. Maybe it was your first time exercising after a long break, waking up an hour earlier than usual, or speaking in front of a group of people. The first time is always the hardest. But notice what happens after you repeat it. The difficulty begins to fade, the task feels less foreign, and eventually it can become a regular part of your life. That shift did not happen because the task itself changed. It happened because your brain adjusted to the repetition. What was once unusual became your new routine. The problem for most people is that they quit before that critical adjustment takes place. They start a new behavior, but when it feels uncomfortable, they tell themselves, "This isn't for me." They expect discipline to feel natural immediately, but nothing feels natural in the beginning. Walking once felt impossible. Reading once felt overwhelming. Driving a car once felt terrifying. You overcame those things only because you forced repetition until your brain finally accepted them as the new normal. The exact same principle applies to every single habit you want to build. Discipline grows when you push past the stage of discomfort and keep repeating the action. That is the test. Your brain is stubborn. It prefers the old, familiar patterns. It wants to keep you in what feels safe and requires less energy. When you introduce a new, difficult behavior, it resists. That feeling of resistance is not a signal to quit. It is a signal that your brain is in the process of adjusting. If you keep repeating the action, you break through the resistance. But if you stop, you train your brain to resist even more the next time you try. This is why forcing repetition is not optional. It is absolutely necessary for building discipline. The key to making repetition work is consistency, not intensity. Doing one massive, heroic effort and then stopping for a month does not rewire anything in your brain. Doing something small every single day does. If you want to build the habit of reading 2 pages every single day is infinitely more powerful than reading 100 pages once a month. If you want to exercise, moving your body daily for 15 minutes is more effective than training hard once and then resting for weeks. The brain learns through rhythm, through the daily act of repeating, not through random, unpredictable bursts of effort. You must also remove the expectation of instant change. Too many people want quick results. They want their brain to accept a new behavior after just 1 or 2 tries. When that doesn't happen, they quit. But your brain does not change on demand. It changes with consistent repetition. That means you must force yourself through the stage where it feels unnatural, through the stage where it feels deeply uncomfortable, until you break through to the stage where it finally feels automatic. If you can survive that middle stage, you will succeed. This is where real discipline becomes tangible. Doing the action even when you do not see any immediate results yet. Imagine planting a seed and then digging it up every day to check if it's growing. It will never take root. Behavior works the same way. If you stop repeating too soon, the habit never has time to form. But if you give it enough consistent repetition, the roots grow deep, and soon the behavior belongs to you. You do not have to think about it anymore. It becomes part of your identity. Repetition also has another powerful effect. It builds evidence for your mind. Every single time you repeat a disciplined action, you are showing yourself proof that you can do it. 1 push-up proves you are capable of moving your body. 1 day of writing proves you are capable of producing work. 1 day of controlling your schedule proves you can direct your own time. Each repetition is a piece of evidence that weakens your self-doubt and strengthens your belief in your own capabilities. Eventually, that belief becomes so strong that the behavior is no longer forced. It is simply who you are. There will be moments when you feel tired of repeating the same action. That is natural. But those are the exact moments where the change is happening the most. Repetition carves grooves into your brain, and every time you continue despite boredom or fatigue, you are making those grooves deeper. The deeper the groove, the easier it becomes to repeat the action again. Quitting at that stage erases your progress, but persisting solidifies it. That is why persistence is far more important than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Persistence comes from repetition, and repetition creates discipline. One practical way to make repetition work for you is to attach it to something you already do every day. If you want to build the habit of gratitude, write down 3 things you are thankful for right after you brush your teeth. If you want to build the habit of exercising, do a few push-ups right after you pour your morning glass of water. Linking a new behavior to an existing one creates a natural, automatic trigger for repetition. The more you link, the easier it becomes to repeat without forgetting. You must also celebrate the completion of the repetition itself, not just the outcome. Many people only reward themselves after they see big results, but the truth is, repeating the action itself is the real victory. Each repetition is a win. When you acknowledge that, you reinforce the behavior, and your brain becomes more willing to repeat it again. This is how you make repetition sustainable over the long term. Another challenge with repetition is monotony. Doing the same thing every day can feel boring, but boredom is part of the training. Your brain craves novelty, but novelty does not build discipline. Repetition does. You must be willing to endure the plain days, the days where it feels uneventful, because those are the days that are truly changing you. When you learn to stay consistent without needing constant excitement, you prove to yourself that you are serious. That seriousness is what separates those who succeed from those who quit. Think about how repetition has already shaped your current life. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you react to stress, all of it came from repetition. You did it enough times until it became automatic. If repetition shaped your old habits, it can absolutely shape new ones. The question is not whether repetition works. It always works. The question is whether you are willing to force it long enough for your brain to finally accept it. The most powerful part of repetition is when it moves from being something you do to something you are. At first you say, "I am trying to be disciplined." After enough repetition you say, "I am disciplined." That shift is not just in your words, it is in your core identity. You no longer have to remind yourself every single day. You simply live it. But the only way to reach that stage is through forced, consistent repetition. If you want to test yourself, choose one small behavior and commit to repeating it daily for the next 30 days. Do not miss a single day. It could be writing one paragraph, drinking more water, or turning off your phone an hour before bed. Force yourself through the discomfort, through the boredom, through the resistance, and watch what happens. By the end of 30 days, your brain will start to accept it as normal. Extend it to 60 days, and it will become harder not to do it than to do it. That is the power of repetition. You shift the default setting of your brain. The reason most people never truly change is not because they lack ability, but because they lack patience with repetition. They underestimate how long it takes for the brain to adapt. They want a shortcut. But the truth is, repetition is the shortcut. It feels slow, but it is the fastest path to lasting change, because once your brain accepts a new behavior, you no longer have to fight against yourself every day. You move forward naturally, without constant struggle. That is real freedom. Discipline is not a mystery. It is simply the result of forcing repetition until your brain surrenders to the new pattern. At first, you carry the habit. Then, the habit carries you. And when that happens, you no longer depend on willpower every day. You depend on who you have become. That transformation is available to anyone willing to repeat an action long enough. So do not quit at the stage where it feels unnatural. Do not give up when it feels boring. Do not stop when the results are not immediate. Keep repeating. Force the behavior again and again until it feels like a fundamental part of your identity. That is how discipline is created. That is how lives are changed. And that is the path waiting for anyone who chooses to repeat until their brain accepts a new way of living.